The story begins in Small Heath, Birmingham, a smoky industrial town where people are trying to rebuild after the war. In the midst of it all are the Peaky Blinders, a working-class gang led by the Shelby family. The family includes 4 brothers: Arthur, Thomas, John, and Finn, along with their sister Ada and their aunt Polly Gray. Arthur Shelby becomes furious when he discovers that his brother Thomas fixed a race using a mysterious Chinese powder. He warns Tommy to stay away from the Chinese and to not draw the attention of Billy Kimber, the local racecourse kingpin. Later, during a Shelby family meeting, Arthur says that a new inspector is coming to town to clean up the streets. But the real reason for his arrival is to find a missing crate of guns. Aunt Polly already knows about the crate and confronts Tommy. After some pressure, Thomas admits that their men accidentally picked up the wrong crate during a routine job. Polly warns him to get rid of the guns before it's too late. The new inspector receives a file listing the main suspects. It includes the Shelby brothers and Freddie Thorne, a communist and Tommy's former best friend. Upon his arrival, Inspector Campbell wastes no time, commanding his loyal officers to arrest Arthur Shelby. Campbell interrogates him mercilessly, but Arthur genuinely has no knowledge of the missing guns. Meanwhile, Tommy notices a new barmaid named Grace at the Garrison pub. He tells her coldly that if she isn't an escort, she should not be working there. Harry, the pub owner, advises her to stay away from Tommy. Arthur is finally released after a brutal interrogation. He explains to the family that Inspector Campbell was sent by Winston Churchill himself to recover weapons stolen in a robbery of national importance. Tommy has yet to reveal the truth about the missing guns, and Polly remains silent, confident that Tommy will do the sensible thing and get rid of the dangerous crate. Tommy arrives at his uncle's yard, intending to get rid of the crate, but he suddenly changes his mind. He declares that if the government wants the weapons back, they will have to pay. Uncle Charlie strongly disapproves of Tommy's decision. Danny Whizbang, Tommy's loyal friend and fellow soldier, suffers from severe PTSD after the war. During a violent episode, he accidentally kills an Italian waiter in Little Italy, in front of many witnesses. The waiter's brothers demand Danny's death as revenge. Fearing what the Italian gang would do to him, Tommy volunteers to carry out the execution himself. The Italians send 2 witnesses to confirm the execution. As the boat disappears under the canal, Danny wakes up. Thomas had only fired a shell filled with sheep brains at the back of his head. Uncle Charlie tells him that he is being sent to London for an important mission. At the museum, Grace meets with Inspector Campbell, revealing that she is an undercover agent working with the inspector. Campbell knows her father, who was a fellow officer killed by the IRA. Grace tells him that she has found no proof that the Peaky Blinders took the crate of guns and suggests that the IRA might have it. Campbell warns her not to let her feelings affect her judgment. Back at the betting shop, Arthur erupts in anger. The horse Tommy used for the powder trick has won. Tommy explains that he wanted the gamblers to believe the trick worked, so they would place even bigger bets in the future. On the day the stakes were highest, the horse would lose. Arthur finally understands Tommy's clever strategy. The following day, Tommy meets Johnny Dogs, an old friend, to wager the family car against one of his horses with a double coin toss. Tension rises when the Lee family begins mocking Arthur's stupidity. Johnny Dogs steps in to calm things, but the Lees insult the Shelby family's mother. The Shelby brothers reveal their razor-lined caps and strike, sparking a feud that will soon escalate into war between Thomas Shelby and the Lee clan. Meanwhile, Inspector Campbell intensifies the hunt for the missing weapons in Small Heath. Ada and Freddie are enjoying a moment together when a man warns Freddie about the looming police crackdown. He quickly sneaks Ada to Mrs. Donovan's house, who reluctantly agrees to hide her, and then tells Ada he must leave for a few days. The police raid Freddie's room and discover a prescription belonging to Ada. Campbell decides to check the church too and meets Aunt Polly. He instructs her to set up a meeting with Thomas Shelby. When the Shelby brothers return, Aunt Polly recounts the events that unfolded. Knowing he would be at a disadvantage if he confronted Campbell now, Tommy cleverly contacts a reporter to publish a story about the burning of the king's pictures on the streets. He reasons that the king doesn't need to witness the cruelty the police are inflicting on the people of Small Heath. The news quickly reaches Winston Churchill, who demands answers from Inspector Campbell. The inspector suggests arresting those responsible, but Churchill stops him. He warns that any arrests would only spread the story to other cities and could draw attention to the missing crate of weapons. A few days later, Grace asks Tommy if she can sing at the pub once a week. Tommy doesn't answer her, but tells her to get her best dress ready because he plans to take her to the next race. He finally allows the horse to lose that same day, reaping a massive profit. Aunt Polly scolds him for fixing a race without Billy Kimber's permission. But Tommy assures her that Kimber has grown weak, and now is the perfect time to challenge him. Tommy finally meets Inspector Campbell, who accuses him of working with communists and shows Ada's prescription as evidence. Tommy ignores the accusation and says Freddy is gone for good. He tells Campbell to stop the raids and promises to hand over the weapons once his plan is finished. Tommy warns that he will sell the guns to the IRA and ruin Campbell's career if he doesn't cooperate. Cornered, Campbell reluctantly accepts the terms. He later meets with Grace and instructs her to get as close to Tommy as possible to locate the missing crate. Back in Small Heath, Curly arrives in a panic, finds Tommy, and urgently leads him to the yard where his horse was kept. Curly reveals that the Lees have cursed the horse, and a spreading infection in both its feet means it will die a painful death by the next day. Hearing this, Tommy chooses to end the horse's suffering himself. After shooting it, he goes to the pub just as Grace is about to close. He asks her to sing a song. Grace stands up and sings a sorrowful tune, filling the room with melancholy. When the song ends, Tommy sits in silence. The next day, Aunt Polly and Ada are ready to board the train to visit an abortionist when Freddy appears. He has returned as fast as he can after hearing the news that Ada is carrying his child. Freddy then proposed to Ada, and she agreed. Aunt Pole urged them both to board the train, but Freddy refused, saying he wasn't scared of Tommy and would not leave Birmingham. Back at the pub, a group of armed men enters, and Billy Kimber demands to know where he can find a Shelby. When nobody answers, he fires a shot into the ceiling. The Shelbys step out from the parlor and clear everyone else from the building. Kimber confronts them for fixing a race without his permission and says the punishment should be death. Tommy throws him a bullet with his name on it, saying it came from the Lees. Tommy suggests they form an alliance to take down the Lee clan, since they are also causing Kimber major problems. He says it would be an honor to work with Kimber. Kimber laughs, saying no one works with him, only for him. He throws a coin at Tommy's feet and tells him to pick it up. Tommy swallows his pride and does so. Kimber says it is payment for the roof damages and leaves. The next day, 2 IRA members from the Black Swan Inn met Tommy to ask about the missing guns. They offered to buy the weapons if the Peaky Blinders had the crate. Grace eavesdropped on their conversation. Tommy told them he would reach out if he learned anything, feigning ignorance about the crate. Later, Grace followed a drunken man leaving the Black Swan Inn. He caught her and pointed a gun at her, threatening the IRA would question her. Grace fought back and shot him with a hidden gun in her purse. Frightened, she ran away immediately. When Inspector Campbell met Grace again, he scolded her because witnesses had seen her shoot the man. He reminded her she was only supposed to gather information and asked if her IRA past affected her judgment. Grace insisted she was only defending herself. Campbell softened, concerned that the act might leave Grace scarred for life. With the money earned from the race, Tommy bought the Garrison pub and gave it to Arthur, fulfilling something his older brother had always wanted since the war. Later, Sergeant Moss told Tommy that Inspector Campbell knew Freddy was back in town. Campbell demanded that Tommy hand him over and warned that Ada would be arrested if he refused. Tommy promised that he would handle Freddie himself. The next morning, Ada rushed into the garrison, hoping to find Tommy or Freddie before they shoot each other. At the same time, Freddie confronted Tommy. He returned the money and tickets Aunt Polly had given him to run away with Ada. Freddie then pressed Tommy for information about the stolen guns, but Tommy refused to answer. Using a moment of distraction, Tommy drew his own gun and told Freddie that he opposed the marriage because he believed Freddie was only using Ada for his political ambitions. Freddie slowly lowered his gun and swore that Tommy was mistaken. He insisted that his feelings for Ada were genuine and that he would never use her for personal gain. Hearing this, Tommy decided to walk away. Haunted by memories of the war, Tommy woke to find Danny returned from London. Danny brought troubling news. The IRA High Command in London suspected the Peaky Blinders of murdering the man at the Black Swan Inn. Tommy denied the accusation and ordered Danny to find an IRA representative from London for negotiations. On race day, Tommy picked up Grace at the bar and drove to the Cheltenham racetrack. Meanwhile, Arthur and Johnny got their cousins ready to stop the Lee family from stealing Billy Kimber's money. They climbed into a truck and headed for the track. Tommy invited Grace to dance to get Billy Kimber's attention. At the same time, Arthur and the Peaky Blinders attacked the Lee family and took back the stolen money. Arthur handed the money to Tommy, who laid it out on Billy's table. Having earned his confidence, Billy told Tommy to negotiate with his accountant while he invited Grace to dance. Tommy and the accountant were making progress until Billy returned with one more demand. Tommy went back to Grace and told her she needed to go to Billy's house, promising he would join her after the negotiation. Grace protested, but Tommy reminded her that working with the Peaky Blinders meant making sacrifices. She reluctantly agreed. Later, Billy's wife asked if Grace was a prostitute, but Tommy admitted that he didn't know her true identity. At Billy's house, Grace refused his advances. When he tried to force her, Tommy barged in and stopped him. Billy was angry. Tommy lied, claiming she was an escort with a clap. Grace was furious, starting the day as Lady Sarah of Connemara and ending it as an escort. Even though Tommy had offered her, he ultimately saved her. Grace asked why he changed his mind, but he didn't answer. Following day, Freddie brought Ada along as he secretly met an associate. Freddie handed over a large sum of money he had received from a Russian agent. Meanwhile, the Lee clan ransacked the Peaky Blinders betting shop, seeking revenge for the previous racing incident. John called an emergency meeting with his brothers and Aunt Polly, speaking candidly about the struggles of being a single father and his desire to marry Lizzie, a prostitute. The family struggled to suppress their laughter, but John's seriousness was unwavering. Before Tommy could say anything, Finn arrived and told them about the betting shop. The guard confirmed the Lees had taken everything. Tommy noticed a wire cutter on the table and realized the Lees might have planted a grenade, a cruel prank reminiscent of wartime. Aware that the Lees were targeting him, Tommy scanned for threats. Seeing Finn playing in the car, he warned him to exit safely. Ignoring the advice, Finn opened the driver's door, triggering the grenade. Tommy reacted instantly, hurling it out of the garage while shouting for everyone to take cover. After the grenade scare, Tommy went to the Lee clan to try to stop their feud. Worried that a child had almost been hurt, he pushed for peace and gave the matriarch a bullet with Billy Kimber's name on it. He explained his deal with Billy, but admitted that his real goal had always been to take Billy down. The matriarch was still unsure until Tommy appealed to her sense of kinship, urging her to see the situation as family. After all, they were connected through his mother's side. Meanwhile, Campbell moved to arrest Freddie. Ada, desperate to get away, told Aunt Polly about the money given to Freddie's contact. Polly informed Tommy, who then passed the details to Campbell. Tommy convinced him that the man was a higher priority target than Freddie and that his superiors would approve. In return, Tommy struck a deal with Campbell to leave Freddie alone. The Peaky Blinders finished all the jobs Billy Kimber had given them. With more deals ahead, they finally got a legal betting license. Everyone celebrated because their business was now official. Tommy later asked Grace to go for a walk. They went into the church, and Tommy told her about Billy's accountant. He said he also needed someone to manage their books, so he offered Grace the position. Grace accepted the offer, and before they left, Tommy kissed her. The next day, Tommy decided to test Lizzie's loyalty. He offered her money for one final favor. At first, she hesitated, but as Tommy increased the amount, greed got the better of her, and she accepted. Tommy was disappointed. He had expected this and was proven right. Angry at being tricked, Lizzie got out of the car and left. John's heart sank when Tommy revealed the truth. Though devastated, Tommy made it clear that he would not interfere if John still wished to marry Lizzie. Ultimately, John withdrew from the wedding, weighed down by sorrow. Tommy tried to lift his brother's spirits and told him that the Shelbys always look out for each other. He urged John to rest, for an important event awaited him the next day. The important event Tommy meant was John's arranged marriage with a woman from the Lee clan. John was upset at first and didn't want to marry someone he didn't know, but Tommy warned that leaving now could start a war. For peace, he told John to put aside his pride and go through with it. John agreed, and his doubt turned to joy when he saw how pretty his bride was. Ada, who had been hiding with Freddie from Tommy and the police, also attended the wedding at Tommy's request. She explained that Freddie wasn't there because he was still angry at her for revealing his associate. That night, everyone celebrated with drinks. Aunt Polly worried about Ada, who kept drinking, and asked Tommy to step in. Tommy told Ada to rest, but she argued, blaming him for the struggles she and Freddie had faced. Suddenly, her water broke, and they rushed her to a midwife. Before leaving, Tommy told Aunt Polly to bring Freddie, promising that he would not harm him that night. Relieved, Aunt Polly shared the news. Freddie rushed to see his newborn son, but the police soon stormed in and dragged him away while Ada cried out for mercy. Polly stormed into the pub and lashed out at Tommy, accusing him of causing Freddie's arrest. Tommy, however, genuinely had no knowledge of it. The next day, as Tommy marked the date of their plan to take down Billy Kimber, he admitted that only Grace was aware of it, since his family had shut him out entirely. Grace began to feel remorse for the trouble she had caused him. One day, Grace learned from Arthur that Tommy sends money to Danny every week to help him. Curious about Danny's grave, she asked Arthur about it, but he warned her not to ask too many questions. Feeling suspicious, Grace decided to visit the grave herself. Meanwhile, Danny had tracked down an IRA representative named Byrne. He arrived at the garrison demanding answers from Tommy. Tommy insisted that the Peaky Blinders had no involvement in the man Grace had shot. They continued the discussion in the parlor. Byrne said that Danny had been talking too much about the missing guns. Tommy explained that Danny had lost his sanity after the war. Byrne revealed his connections within the BSA factory, people who point their fingers at the Peaky Blinders. He threatened the entire Shelby family if the guns weren't delivered. Tommy finally admitted the truth. He had the guns, but he made it clear that Byrne would not get them for free. That night, Tommy rushed into the garrison and told Grace that 2 IRA men planned to kill him once they got what they wanted. He gave her a pistol and told her to stay hidden until he gave the signal. Soon, Byrne and his partner arrived. Tommy gave them the map, and the partner paid him. But Byrne planned to betray him. At Tommy's signal, Grace, seeking revenge for her father, shot Byrne's partner on sight. A brutal fight ensued, and Tommy broke free, ruthlessly killing Byrne. As they embraced, Sergeant Moss and his men entered the bar. Tommy explained that Byrne and his associate had refused to surrender. He later escorted Grace home and apologized for putting her in danger. The following day, Campbell apologized to Grace for the events of the previous night. He admitted that he hadn't expected Tommy to involve her in his operations. Campbell asked if Sergeant Moss's report was accurate and whether Grace had hugged Tommy. Grace responded that hugging was the least of her worries and revealed that she had shot an IRA man. Grace replied that she no longer harbored hatred toward the IRA and felt no need to avenge her father. Grace asked Campbell if they would leave Tommy alone once they found the guns and left Birmingham. Campbell asked why she wanted to protect him. Grace explained that it was out of sympathy since Tommy had been kind to her during her stay. Campbell gave his word not to harm Tommy after the guns were recovered. While leaving the park, Grace told him about Danny's grave. She believed the guns were buried there because only the Shelby brothers had attended the funeral and lined the grave with lead. Campbell dug up Danny's grave and found the weapon crate he had been looking for, except one gun was missing. Hearing this, Grace resigned. Campbell, no longer having her as an employee, decided to propose, but she turned him down. He assumed her refusal had to do with Tommy. His hatred for Tommy grew, and he ordered Sergeant Moss and his men to take down the Peaky Blinders. Tommy rushed to the garrison to warn Grace that he would need to stay in hiding, as Campbell was now after him. Finn cautioned them that the police were closing in. Soon, Campbell arrived and demanded to know Tommy's whereabouts. He threatened Henry, who revealed that Grace had taken Tommy with her. The revelation shattered Campbell. Disregarding Sergeant Moss's objections, he called off the search. In her apartment, Tommy and Grace shared an intimate moment. Tommy asked her to dance, and they moved together while Campbell watched from the shadows. That night, they stayed in each other's arms. Tommy whispered that the sound of shovels digging had vanished and asked Grace to be by his side from now on. Meanwhile, after being brutally interrogated for several days, Freddie was being transported to another prison. Midway through the journey, the police released him from his handcuffs. He explained that the Peaky Blinders were helping him escape. A wagon then blocked the police car, and Danny emerged with a machine gun, scaring the driver away. Campbell met with Churchill, who praised him for recovering the weapon crate. Campbell spoke highly of Grace, ensuring that the newspapers would highlight her contributions so the Peaky Blinders would know her true identity. When Churchill asked about the fate of the Peaky Blinders, Campbell assured him that a plan was already in motion to deal with them. At the family meeting, Tommy declared that the moment to strike at Billy Kimber had finally come. John's marriage to Esme had secured the Lee clan as allies, tipping the scales in their favor. Back at the garrison, Grace felt the weight of her actions and wanted to speak privately with Tommy. She confessed that she was leaving for good. Tommy acknowledged that he was far from perfect, but was trying to do better. Their conversation was cut short when Arthur and the preacher burst in with news that Kimber's men were on their way. Tommy rushed to tell Ada to get her baby to safety. When Aunt Polly asked why, he revealed that Kimber already knew their plan. Since the family had kept the secret, Polly realized Grace must have been the one who leaked it. Tommy realized the painful truth as well. Grace was also behind the stolen guns discovery and Freddie's arrest. Polly assured Tommy that she would handle Grace herself. Realizing she had been found out, Grace drew her pistol, but Polly stayed unshaken and uninterested in fighting. Grace confessed that she loved Tommy and asked what he had been like before the war. Polly told her that he used to smile constantly. She added that Tommy might forgive Grace one day, but she never would. Finally, she gave Grace an ultimatum: leave for good or face the consequences. With the Lee clan already at the racing course and Inspector Campbell ordering his men to stay down, the Peaky Blinders had to face Billy Kimber and his men alone. Tommy inspired his men, reminding them of their victories in battle. Outnumbered 3-1, Jeremiah, the preacher, gripped his weapon once more, prepared to fight alongside his comrades. When Billy Kimber and his men arrived, Tommy revealed his final strategy. On his signal, Danny and Freddie emerged with a machine gun. Just as the battle seemed inevitable, Ada strolled in with the baby. She reminded the men about their loved ones, their families, their sons and daughters, and their wives. Billy agreed with Ada. He didn't want his men to die, so he took out his pistol and shot Tommy. As he went for the second shot, Danny leapt in to take the bullet, Tommy swiftly ended the fight with a headshot to Billy and instructed the remaining men to return home, saying it was a fair duel. The men carried Billy's corpse away. Jeremiah managed to remove the bullet from Tommy's shoulder. Unfortunately, Danny did not make it. Sergeant Moss informed Inspector Campbell that Billy Kimber had been found dead. Since there were no witnesses to corroborate any accounts, the Peaky Blinders would get away with murder once again. Moss added that Freddie Thorne had escaped because the police had not been at their posts during the conflict. Sergeant Moss left Campbell to contemplate on his defeat. Later, Tommy went to Grace's apartment just as she was about to leave. Grace confessed her feelings for him, but it was too late. Tommy felt betrayed and didn't want anything to do with her. Before departing, she gave him her address in London, asking him to join her so they could go to New York together. As Grace waited for the train to arrive, Inspector Campbell appeared and pointed his gun at her. Grace shot Inspector Campbell with the very weapon he had given her. Meanwhile, Tommy wrote to Grace explaining he would not be joining her in America. He left their future to a coin toss. 2 years later, Freddie Thorne dies from the Spanish flu. While the Shelby family attends his funeral, 2 women approach the Garrison pub and leave their strollers at the entrance. Moments later, the strollers explode. Arthur informs Tommy about the explosion. Noticing green confetti at the site, Tommy quickly identifies the culprit and makes his way to the Black Lion pub. A boy leads him away, and he is searched, hooded, and taken to 2 IRA members. Tommy jokes about their political side, asking if they are pro-treaty or anti-treaty. When Irene issues a threat, he hits back by bringing up details about her son. Her associate seeks permission to shoot Tommy in return, but Irene stops him. She says Tommy has been chosen for a job by their leaders. Tommy explodes with anger after the meeting, realizing he has been dragged into a dangerous political game. Tommy bribes Sergeant Moss to pull the police away from the BSA factory for the night. Moss complies and also gives him bonus information. Inspector Campbell is returning, which indicates Grace merely wounded him. Tommy calls a family meeting and reveals his plan to expand the business to London. Esme and John objects, saying it will only bring danger, but Tommy stands firm and tells them they are free to leave if they disagree. In the end, both decides to stay. After the meeting, Tommy heads to the BSA factory area where he stalks and shoots Eamon Duggan, the man the IRA members ordered him to eliminate. Tommy offers Lizzie a position as his secretary and promises she will never need to sell herself again. Lizzie happily accepts. When they reach London, the brothers walk straight into Sabini's club on purpose. Sabini is the racecourse kingpin and gang leader in London. A fierce fight erupts, but the Shelbys stand firm. Tommy declares they did not come to start wars, but to offer the underdogs a chance to rise. Sabini strikes back by attacking the Shelby family, even going after Ada. Tommy's men manage to save her before she is hurt. After beating Tommy to a pulp, Sabini warns him that crossing him was a grave mistake. He orders his men to shoot Tommy, but the police arrive and force them to back off. At the hospital, Campbell meets Tommy and reveals he has proof that Tommy shot Eamon Duggan. He tells Tommy that he now works for the Crown and must do exactly as he is told. Tommy leaves the hospital and sets out by boat for Camden Town. After 4 days of travel, he reaches his destination with most of his strength restored. He enters a bakery front distillery run by a sharp and strategic gang leader named Alfie Solomons. The meeting is tense, mixing sharp banter with open threats. Tommy puts forward an alliance against Sabini and commits to backing Alfie with his own men. Still suspicious, Alfie raises his gun at Tommy. Tommy remains calm, but his injuries betray him as blood drips from his nose. Seeing how calm he stays under pressure, Alfie agrees to the alliance. On Aunt Polly's birthday, Tommy surprises her with a house. However, she cannot feel happy about it after just learning from a psychic about the death of her long-lost daughter. She is unsure what to do with such a big home. Tommy sees her pain and asks his brothers to leave them alone. He then admits that he knows about her secret search for her lost children and promises to help find them. Tommy eventually manages to find Polly's son, though his foster mother is hostile and unwelcoming. With Michael nearing adulthood, Tommy leaves him an address if he ever decides to meet his biological mother. The morning after the Garrison pub reopening party, Polly heads back to the apartment and finally sees her son again for the first time since their separation. The conflict with Sabini drags on. To make another statement, Sabini orders his men to kill a newly jailed Peaky Blinder recruit. Realizing Sabini will never back down, Tommy plans to cripple Sabini's biggest operation, his racecourse. He buys a horse at the auction for Sabini's next race. May Carleton, who earlier tried to outbid him at the auction, reveals that she is a horse trainer. Tommy hires her to train the horse he has just bought. When they leave the bidding place, Sabini's men try to kill Tommy, but they fail. As a response to Sabini's threat, the Peaky Blinders move to seize control of his club. The next morning, Tommy goes to meet Campbell, but when he sees Irene and her friend there too, he realizes that he has been tricked. Furious, Tommy rejects the mission and storms out. Campbell grabs the file and goes after him. Tommy reveals that Irene's companion is secretly an anti-treaty IRA spy and agrees to help only if Campbell eliminates the threat. Campbell accepts the deal. Tommy Shelby begins surveying his target house, parking nearby and timing the guard's response. He then visits Ada and meets her new friend, James. He asks her to sign legal papers to secure a trust fund for her son, Carl. When Ada asks why he is doing this, Tommy says it is because he has no children of his own. The thought of not having his own family finally pushes Tommy to call Grace. However, her husband answers the phone, so Tommy hangs up. Grace senses that the call was from Tommy. After failing to intimidate the Peaky Blinders, Sabini seeks out Alfie Solomons to make peace and form a new agreement. They accept each other's conditions, and when Arthur comes to talk business,
Shalom.
Alfie turns on him and accuses him of murdering his own men, resulting in his arrest. Sabini also moves in and retakes his club. That same evening, Campbell orders the arrest of Michael Gray on a charge of arson. When Tommy learns that both Arthur and Michael have been taken into custody, he becomes furious and confronts Campbell. Campbell replies that he knows Tommy does not fear death and needed leverage to make sure the job would be done. When Tommy returns to the office, he gets a return call from Grace. She explains that she is traveling to Birmingham soon and wants to meet. Meanwhile, Polly pleads for her son's release, but Campbell asks for a favor in exchange and says he will sign the papers once he is satisfied. Polly knew what he meant and did not object. The next day, she goes back to the prison to collect her son. Michael knows what she did to free him and tells her that the police have been making fun of her. He somewhat agrees with them. Overcome by stress, Tommy goes to the stables and starts shoveling manure. Curly is shocked and asks why his boss is doing such work. Tommy replies that it's a reminder of who he might be if he were not who he is today. He quickly pulls himself together and prepares to deal with the challenges ahead. Grace makes a special effort with her outfit and visits Tommy at his apartment. After a short conversation, Tommy admits that he meant to seduce her, but then changed his mind. He only wants her to confess that she is happy with her new life. Grace agrees that she is happy, but refuses to leave when he tells her to go. Tommy suggests they keep their date going and takes her out to meet Charlie Chaplin, who is visiting the city. Later, Major Campbell gets a call from Tommy, who says he is with Grace and that she will be in his bed by the end of the night. Campbell is stunned and furious by the news. Grace reveals that she and her husband came to England for medical help to understand why they could not conceive. Tommy sympathizes with her and, realizing she still has feelings for him, dares her to be honest with her husband. The next day, Johnny Dogs drives up to the target's house and parks outside. While the guard is distracted by him, John quickly leaves a box at the front door. A blast follows soon after. Campbell confronts Tommy and says that Russell, their target, will now need to find a new place to live. He asks if Tommy is stalling, but Tommy says he alone will choose the moment and location since he knows that Campbell will trap him. When pressed about the location, Tommy simply says,
Epsom, Derby Day.
Tommy goes to see Ada and hands her a letter meant to reveal the truth about Campbell and the government. He tells her to post it if anything happens to him. James shows up, and Ada begins to worry when she hears he is joining Tommy for an errand. They leave before she can stop him. Arthur prepares to defend himself when he hears footsteps approaching, but the man instead tells him that he is free. Arthur leaves the prison and gets into one of their trucks, where Johnny Dogs is waiting and tells him to contact Tommy. Alfie's phone rings, and Tommy is relieved to learn that his brother has been released. In exchange for withdrawing his testimony, Alfie demands control of all of Tommy's import and export business. Tommy refuses. He reveals that he tied his shoe earlier and secretly attached a grenade to one of the rum barrels. He warns that if anyone besides him leaves the factory, James will set it off. Ollie, now terrified, confirms that Tommy arrived with another man and did indeed stop to tie his shoe on the way in. Knowing he has been outsmarted, Alfie settles for 35% of the profits. Tommy later reunites with Arthur and tells his men that they will be heading to the racecourse. Meanwhile, Campbell meets with 3 operatives from the Red Right Hand of the Ulster Volunteer Force. He tells them to capture Tommy and execute him once his task is complete. Tommy orders his men to wait until the police leave their positions to hunt him down. Only then will the Peaky Blinders move in to claim Sabini's pitches, destroy his permits, and take his money. Upon reaching the racecourse, Tommy begins tailing Russell, but Grace suddenly shows up. She reveals that she is pregnant with his baby and feels relieved that she was not the problem. Tommy is glad to hear this, and Grace confesses her love. With Russell slipping away, Tommy urgently tells her they will talk after the race. Having lost his chance to assassinate him, Tommy asks Lizzie to draw Russell away to a private place. Frustrated at being used, she reminds him of his promise that she would never need to do that kind of work again. Tommy insists he will stop Russell in time. Lizzie reluctantly agrees and lures Russell to the chosen spot. Tommy rushes to the location, but the officers order him to take a different route. Arriving late, he attempts to shoot Russell, but the gun fails. And after a fierce struggle, Tommy shoots him using Russell's own gun. Tommy apologizes to Lizzie and tells her to leave. Seeing the coppers leave their posts, Arthur orders everyone to begin their operation. Tommy then finds Sabini and tells him about what was currently happening to his bookies at the racecourse. Sabini breaks a wine bottle and tries to stab Tommy, but the men whom Campbell hired arrive at the scene and take Tommy away. Campbell reports the successful mission to his superiors when Polly appears. Believing she will not do anything reckless in public, he invites her into the booth. His confidence fades instantly when she pulls out her gun and shoots him at point-blank range. She tells him to never mess with the Peaky Blinders. Tommy is taken to a field where a grave is waiting for him. The man kicks him into the grave, but suddenly shoots the other 2 instead. He then tells Tommy that Churchill wants to speak with him in person about a new job. He orders Tommy to step out and go home. As he leaves, Tommy finally releases his bottled-up emotions. 2 years after his near-death experience, Tommy stood beside Arthur at the altar, waiting for Grace. Her former husband had killed himself after finding out she was pregnant with Tommy's child. Arthur had also settled down with Linda, who was present at the wedding. After the ceremony, Tommy noticed a suspicious man outside the church. The man's presence bothered him, but Grace thought he was having doubts about marrying her and wanted to know. Tommy replied that he was only worried about being pulled back into bad business again. She made him swear to keep them safe. Tommy promised. Meanwhile, Lizzie confronts Michael and Arthur because the Peaky Blinders had burned her boyfriend's restaurant to stop him from attending the wedding. Michael reminded her that she was not allowed to see men from other gangs, as it was Tommy's command. During dinner, Tommy cut off Arthur's speech. which angered him and made him storm out. Linda tried to calm him, and Tommy soon followed. Tommy told Arthur that the Russians had reached out. He explained that they viewed family as a weakness and would use it against them. Arthur understood and calmed down. Tommy then went to meet the Russian and asked for the cash as agreed, but the Russian told him that a duke's niece was on her way with the money. After the dance, Tommy met the duke's niece, Tatiana Petrovna. She wanted to meet the Russian man from earlier, but Tommy said the man had given the wrong password when asked. He believed the man was a Soviet infiltrator. Tatiana wanted to confirm who he was, but Tommy only wanted the money and told her to leave. Soon after, Tommy ordered Arthur to dispose of the infiltrator. The man was speaking with Ada when Arthur informed him that Tatiana had arrived with the money. Arthur then led him to a quiet spot, but the man sensed he had been caught from Arthur's body language. A fight broke out, and Arthur was hesitant to shoot him at first. Since meeting Linda, he had tried to change, but in the end, he had a job to do. At the betting shop, Polly and Tommy put away the money. The Soviets were fighting a civil war between the Bolshevik Reds and the anti-communist Whites. The Crown, which supported capitalism, forced Tommy to aid the Whites. This time, the Russians paid him to steal armored vehicles. This was the dangerous business Tommy had warned Grace about. Tommy went to Lanchester Motor Company and demanded access to their warehouse. The manager did not fear Tommy, but he gave in to protect his family. Tommy went inside and verified that the armored vehicles were all there, matching what his sources had told him. The Economic League assigned a priest to keep Tommy under control. Tommy reported the situation about the vehicles, and the priest handed him a note with the name of the man he must meet in London. Tommy already had plans to meet Mr. Changretta, but the priest ordered him to cancel everything and travel to London at once. Tommy sent his brothers to meet Mr. Changretta in his place. Mr. Changretta wanted to know why his son's restaurant had been burned down. His son was the man seeing Lizzie. John denied everything and started insulting him. Mr. Changretta insisted that his son could walk with any woman he wanted, even if she worked for the Peaky Blinders. John warned that his son would not be walking far with 2 bullets in his knees. Mr. Changretta stormed out of the meeting in anger. Arthur worried about the outcome of the meeting and instructed Isaiah to increase security at one of their pubs. Arthur and Polly tried to make John apologize and make peace with Mr. Changretta, but John refused to listen. Enraged, John went after Mr. Changretta's son and warned him to stay away from Lizzie. In London, Tommy met with Mr. Romanoff. When asked about the death of the spy at the wedding, Tommy answered that the man had pleaded for his life. Tommy then accused him of not being a true Romanoff and feared he would not receive the full payment they had agreed on. Mr. Romanoff handed him a blue sapphire and claimed there were many more in their vault. Tommy accepted the sapphire as payment and told Mr. Romanoff that he would have a friend check its authenticity. Back in Birmingham, Aunt Polly told Tommy what had happened. Tommy sided with John. He did not want to apologize or compromise. Tommy knew that if they apologized once, they would have to keep doing it again and again. Tommy also accused Arthur of becoming soft and weak because of Linda. Upon arriving home, Tommy presents Grace with the blue sapphire, something beautiful for her to wear at their upcoming charity dinner. The following day, officers from Scotland Yard stormed the betting shop to arrest Tommy. The priest had arranged the arrest to prove how much power his group held. He knew Ada had ties to the Bolsheviks in London and warned that she could be a security threat. He also told Tommy that they had agents everywhere, even in his own home. To prove it, he told Tommy to look under his son's pillow when he returned home. Tommy hurried back and checked under his son's pillow. He found a card with his son's name and the words R.I.P. written on it. At the charity dinner, Tommy sees the priest again with Patrick Jarvis MP and knows they have come there for business. Tommy explained that he would arrange a strike during the transportation of the armored vehicles. The MP then told him that the Russians insisted on inspecting them first, and that Tommy must take Tatiana to the warehouse. Tommy disliked the idea, but he had no choice. Returning to the party, Tommy saw Grace talking with Tatiana. Ada soon led Grace away, leaving Tommy and Tatiana to discuss business matters. Tommy said it was a mistake to visit the factory, but Tatiana insisted she had to follow orders the same way he did. Tatiana then claimed that the sapphire Grace wore was cursed by a gypsy. This made Tommy uneasy, and he quickly went to Grace and told her to take it off. In that moment, a man steps forward and fires his gun, killing Grace instantly. He was sent by Mr. Changretta. After days of wandering alone outdoors, Tommy finally returns to the mansion and summons the family for a meeting. This time, he spoke to them one group at a time, giving orders to Polly and Michael first, and then to John and Arthur. His brothers told Tommy that they had dealt with Mr. Changretta's son and informed him that Mr. Changretta and his wife were preparing to flee the country. Tommy told them to capture Mr. Changretta alive so he could deal with him himself. Tommy issues several more orders. Acting on his instructions, Arthur and John make their way to the factory. They gave the manager a list of communist workers they wanted fired in order to trigger a strike during Transportation Day. Once again, the manager had no choice but to obey. Tommy traveled to Wales to meet a wise gypsy woman. He asked her to tell him if the sapphire was truly cursed. The woman examined the stone and confirmed that it carried a dark curse. This revelation helps relieve some of Tommy's guilt. Tommy left the sapphire with the woman and walked away with a lighter heart. Before they could get on their ship, Mr. and Mrs. Changretta noticed a man approaching them. They shouted for help, and a police officer came over. The officer told them to follow him, but instead took them straight to Arthur and John. After pleading with Mrs. Changretta to let go of her husband, Mr. Changretta was brought before Tommy. Tommy said he would keep him alive until the blackbirds sang. He said Grace loved the sound of the blackbirds, but now she would never hear them again. Tommy shouted and threatened to take his eyes first. Before he could continue, Arthur shot Mr. Changretta and told Tommy he heard the blackbirds singing. Tommy finally calmed down. Ada is also instructed by Tommy to use her communist contacts to uncover who had been feeding information to the Soviet embassy. The Russian at the wedding is clear evidence that a leak exists. Ada said that she contacted one of her late husband's friends and reported that only one name surfaced, James Monkland. Tommy immediately had the man named James Monkland arrested and interrogated. When threatened about where he got his information from, Monkland confessed that the priest was his source. Later, Tommy dines with the Romanovs and outlines his plan to use a strike as a distraction while he moves the armored vehicles. Realizing that the Duke's wife is actually the one in charge, he writes, "I have secrets" on a napkin and hands it to her. After Tommy departed, Mrs. Romanov spoke in Russian and instructed Tatiana to escort Tommy and learn what those secrets were. Outside, Tommy told Tatiana that Father Hughes, the priest who pretended to be their friend, was actually a communist spy and said he would kill him for free if Mrs. Romanov approved. Tatiana visits Tommy the next day and makes it clear that he is free to take action against Father Hughes. Meanwhile, an intoxicated Polly goes to confession. She confesses to killing a lawman and speaks of the voices that have tormented her since. She also hints that a holy man will soon die. When the priest presses her for more details, Polly regrets speaking and walks out. The priest, a trusted associate of Father Hughes, immediately alerts him. On the day Tommy plans to assassinate Father Hughes, he is ambushed and severely beaten instead. They take him away for questioning. In his drugged state, Tommy mumbles that Hughes has been feeding information to the Reds. Hughes then explains that his organization's true goal is to manipulate the Reds into committing a violent act on British soil, forcing the Crown to sever ties with them. He orders Tommy to apologize to him in front of the Romanovs, or he will come after his son. Tommy obeyed and apologized to Father Hughes. Hughes ordered him to recite the act of contrition before he left, a punishment for accusing him. Afterward, with Ada's help, Tommy met with an advisor to the Soviet consul. He revealed that their informant, Father Hughes, and the Economic League were planning to sabotage British-Soviet relations. Their aim was for the Reds to blow up the train carrying the armored vehicles during the robbery, ensuring diplomatic ties would be cut. The advisor wanted to know why Tommy was telling them this. Tommy replied it was because he and his family would be blamed as well when it happened and wanted protection. During his recovery, Michael told Tommy what Father Hughes did to him when he was a kid. He begged Tommy to let him be the one to finish him off. To undermine the Economic League, Tommy instructs the Peaky Blinders to disable the armored vehicles by removing their firing pins. With the vehicles rendered useless, the Soviet representative agrees not to destroy the train during transport. He also instructs Johnny to take 3 Lee families and set up camp 100 yards from where the Russians are staying. He said he had purchased the land, making the camp legal. Later, Tommy met with Alfie Solomons. Alfie already knew that Tommy was clashing with the Russians, and Tommy now wanted his help. The others arrive for the meeting, but Arthur decides to go back the instant he sees Alfie. Alfie greeted him with
Shalom.
He said their past conflict was business and apologized for it. Arthur demanded an explanation. Tommy replied that the Russians could not be trusted to pay them properly, so he needed Alfie's skills as a gemstone and jewelry expert to assess their payment and, more importantly, to locate their vault. The Russians were taken aback when Alfie revealed he could understand them. He explained how their people once hunted his mother with dogs. He deliberately made things difficult for them, particularly Mr. Romanoff. The jewelry fell short of the agreed value, leading Alfie to wonder if the Fabergé egg was actually in their possession. Despite her initial hesitation, Mrs. Romanoff ultimately agrees to include the priceless Fabergé egg as part of the payment. Later, Tommy brought in his former tunnelers from the war to work with the Lees on a tunnel toward the Russian vault. Meanwhile, Polly went through Michael's office and found a ring box with a bullet labeled Hughes. She confronted Tommy, and he confessed what the priest had done to Michael in his childhood and that Michael wanted revenge. Polly sympathizes with Michael, but she refuses to let him endure the same suffering she faced after taking a life. She told Tommy that if he allowed Michael to kill the priest, she would destroy the company. The charity orphanage Grace dreamed of was finally open to everyone. Tommy addressed the crowd and assured them the children would be safe and loved. While staring at Grace's memorial, Father Hughes showed up and interrupted him. Hughes had not been invited and told Tommy where his office would be. Tommy gave no reply and raised no protest. Later on, Arthur and John told Tommy that the tunnelers had run into Clay. Before he could respond, guests distracted him while he tried to calm Charlie's crying. They wanted a photograph with him, and a maid took Charlie away. Soon after, Tommy realized his son had been taken. The celebration was halted while everyone searched for the boy. Tommy panicked, but Arthur steadied him, saying the kidnappers would make contact and that he must stay focused. While waiting for a call at the betting shop, Ada rushes in and informs him that the priest is asking for him. Father Hughes ordered him to blow up the train himself and demanded 6 bodies to increase the impact. Hughes said he also knew about the tunnel and demanded the jewelry and the Fabergé egg before dawn. He added that an associate's wife wanted the egg desperately. Tommy said the Clay had slowed their work, but Hughes warned that the church bells would ring for his son if he failed to deliver them before dawn. Tommy later met Alfie, who handed him a list of buyers interested in the Fabergé egg, including a separate list of men whose wives were obsessed with it. The moment Tommy read it, he drew his gun. He already knew the names that should appear on it, and one was missing. Alfie confessed that he had betrayed him. Alfie then reminds Tommy of all the lines he himself has crossed before. He said they were not innocent civilians who did not understand the cruel nature of their world. Tommy accepted this and calmed down. Alfie then admitted he truly did not know they would take his son. Tommy sent Michael to have the man whose wife wanted the Fabergé egg arrested. Arthur and John get him to confess that Tommy's child is with the priest at the orphanage. Michael was given the task of rescuing the boy. Once Charlie was safe, Michael would call Finn, who would warn Arthur not to set off the explosives. Meanwhile, Tommy rushed to finish the tunnel. He continues digging despite the growing danger ahead. Michael reached the orphanage and confronted Father Hughes, but his moment of hesitation allowed the priest to strike back. After a violent struggle, Michael was able to wound him. When backup arrived, Michael told them to contact Finn while he finished the job himself. Finn hurried to warn Arthur, but an explosion went off before he could get to them. At the same time, Tommy broke into the vault and collected the jewelry as quickly as possible. He later spoke to Ada, who confirmed that Michael had returned safely with Charlie. Tommy bursts into tears of relief upon hearing his son's voice again. The following morning, Tommy met Tatiana again. It was her idea to steal the valuable items and secretly buy them back without her aunt finding out. Tommy asked where she planned to go next, and she said she was going to Vienna. They wished each other well and then parted ways. After the job was done, Tommy gave payment to his family and friends. When Polly stopped Michael from collecting his share, Tommy told her that money was the only way he could repay their loyalty. Polly proposed that they use the money to start a proper business with no bloodshed. All the women supported the idea except Linda, who planned to leave for America with Arthur. Arthur said his farewells, but Tommy then revealed that the police were on their way to arrest Arthur and John for the explosion, Michael for the murder of Hughes, and Polly for the murder of Campbell. Everyone panicked. Linda believes Tommy has done this to stop Arthur from leaving with her. Tommy assured them that everything would be fine because he had struck a deal with even more powerful figures. Soon after, the police arrived and arrested them. Season 4 of Peaky Blinders opens with Polly, Arthur, Michael, and John standing moments away from execution for their crimes. Using a set of documents, including one taken from the Russian vault, Tommy negotiates with Arthur, the king's private secretary, for his family's freedom and an OBE for himself in exchange for destroying the evidence. The deal is accepted, and Tommy's family is spared. Following what happened, the family separates. Arthur and John purchase estates. A year later, Lizzie visits Tommy at the Midland Hotel to deliver an invitation to John's New Year's party, adding that Ada, who now runs the Shelby business in Boston, is also back for the party. She encourages Tommy to go and reunite with everyone, but he refuses, still feeling guilty about nearly getting them executed. The next day, Tommy returns to his company and learns from Michael that a union leader and communist agitator named Jessie is stirring up the women workers to join her cause for equality. Tommy then asks about Polly. Michael says that Polly now claims to see spirits, something that changed since she almost got hanged. Tommy orders Michael to get rid of her pills and make sure she stays away from whiskey and coke. Meanwhile, John is at his estate shooting birds when a car arrives. Realizing it is Ada, he goes to welcome her. Esme does not want anything to do with the Shelbys anymore and calls Linda to tell her that Ada is coming over. Jesse Eden heads to Tommy's office to confront him about unequal pay. Tommy offers to raise women's wages by 5 shillings, but cut men's wages by the same amount. Jesse rejects the deal and threatens a strike. Tommy does not care and dares her to start a strike. Once home, Tommy opened a rare letter from New York. His face darkened when he pulled out a Christmas card bearing a black hand emblem. It was sent by Luca Changretta, the eldest son of Mr. Changretta. Ada later arrives at Arthur's house when the phone rings. John is on the line and says he has received the black hand and is worried Luca can find his house. He reminds Arthur that Luca was sent to New York by his father after committing a serious crime. After hanging up, Arthur confirms he has received the same letter and tells Ada. She says she will visit Tommy next and hear what he has to say. When Ada reaches Tommy, she confirms that Arthur and John received the same letter as him. Tommy asks her to convince Michael and Polly to return to Small Heath while he deals with Arthur and John. He wants everyone back where people know them and remain loyal to them. Ada arrives and finds Polly hysterical. Michael has thrown away her pills and liquor. Ada calms her down and tells them about Luca's letters. She finds Polly's letter, and they confirm that Polly and Michael are on his hit list too. Meanwhile, a newly hired sous chef repeatedly sends the maid to ask Tommy when the dinner guests will arrive, raising Tommy's suspicion. Tommy goes to see him and gives him 10 pounds, then meets the head chef in another room. He explains that if 10 pounds means nothing to the man, someone must have paid him much more. The head chef admits the sous chef is a hitman hired by Luca. Tommy tells him to call the man in, then ambushes him the moment he enters. Tommy then calls Michael and asks him to collect John, since he cannot reach him. Michael goes to John's estate the next day, and on the way sees a farmer carrying hay. When Esme sees Michael, she tells him to leave and says they can protect themselves. As they argue, Luca's men jump out of the hay cart. Michael tells Esme to run while John stands his ground. Outnumbered, both John and Michael are riddled with bullets. The men leave as Esme rushes to John's lifeless body. Tommy and Polly rush Michael to the hospital. Polly tells Tommy that the Italians must pay. During the meeting, he warns them to stay together or they will be taken out one by one. Tommy then announces he has brought in Aberama gold. Johnny Dogs objects, claiming Aberama's people are savages who cannot be trusted. Arthur declares he will handle Luca himself and displays a bullet with Luca's name carved into it. After the meeting, John is given a gypsy burial. While the wagon burns, two of Luca's men show up. One acts as lookout while the other prepares a sniper rifle. Before they can fire, Aberama steps in, stabs the guard, and shoots the sniper. Panic spreads, but Tommy tells everyone not to return fire. Polly realizes that Tommy has turned John's funeral into a trap and feels disgusted by it. Later, Polly visits Michael in the hospital and suggests they leave for Australia once he recovers. Michael, however, tells Polly to clear her head and help Tommy win the war. He promises to go to Australia with her when the war is over. Polly agrees to the proposal and talks to Tommy. She says she will help him for Michael's sake. She then advises Tommy to ask Aberama what he truly wants. Tommy points out to Aberama that Polly can see things and asks what he wants. Aberama states that he wants his son Bonnie to become a well-known boxer and says he has never lost in underground fights. To earn Aberama's trust, Tommy sets up a match between Bonnie and a retired heavyweight champion now working at the factory. After trading a few blows, Bonnie astonishes everyone by knocking Billy down. Seeing this, Tommy agrees to promote Bonnie and gives him a Peaky Blinders cap. He then goes to meet Jessie Eden. She tries to settle things peacefully once more, but Tommy dares her to act. Jessie follows through and blows the whistle, starting the strike. The workers leave their posts and the factory falls quiet. Not long after, Mr. Devlin, the manager, tells Tommy he will be meeting a European trade delegate next. The delegate turns out to be Luca Changretta. Tommy draws his gun, but Luca has already had the bullets removed. He places them on the table while listing each member of Tommy's family. He hands back the bullet meant for John, saying it is no longer needed. Luca says Tommy will be the last to die so he can feel the pain of losing all his family members. The next day, Tommy holds a meeting at the hospital to restore Polly as company treasurer and to vote against letting Arthur kill Luca. Everyone agrees that Aberama should handle Luca. Meanwhile, Arthur is at the factory being seduced by Linda. The manager interrupts, begging Arthur to deal with protesters who have broken in. Arthur handles them, but two hitmen arrive and start shooting. He dodges the bullets and cleverly takes them down. Tommy confronts Arthur for skipping the meeting. Arthur replies that he has already taken out 2 of the 15 Italians after them and learned from Ada that Aberama has assumed his role. He insists he will pursue Luca because John's death is his fault for shooting Mr. Changretta. Before leaving, he mentions that the Italians came in through the back door, which was opened by someone. Drunk, he returns home and accuses Linda of seducing him so he would miss the meeting. Tommy returns to the factory and demands to know why Mr. Devlin left the back door unlocked. Knowing Devlin has already sent his family to Glasgow, he threatens them. Devlin explains that he lives among unemployed and angry men who intimidate him daily and admits that he fears Tommy the most, which is why he still comes to work. He says the Italians have communist allies in the factory and suspects one of them opened the door while he tried to stop the paint shop from being burned. He begs to leave for Glasgow, but Tommy refuses, assuring him that his contacts will keep his family safe. Tommy later visits Jessie Eden, suspecting she or her unemployed communist workers might be aiding the Italians. He shows her a family photo of Luca Changretta and asks if she recognizes anyone. Jessie does not answer, and instead gives him a photo of Tommy as a young man with his first love before the war. She has learned that Tommy used to be a sweet man and a communist enthusiast like her. Tommy replies that he too has done his own research and mentions her sweetheart who killed himself after the war. He takes the photo and leaves. Arthur is still burning with the desire to avenge his brother, but Linda pleads with him to hear God's voice and stop seeking revenge. The next day, Arthur fires a gun and Tommy and Finn rush to him. Arthur used the bullet meant for Luca and said Linda had helped him choose a new path. Tommy agreed and told him that all would be well. The photograph Tommy took from Jessie stirs memories of his past. He brings Lizzie to the riverbank, where he once met Greta in secret. He explains that Greta used to wait there for hours. Some days he waited for her, though her family kept her locked inside their home. Since he has not visited the canal in many years, Tommy wants Lizzie with him there. The two end up making love. Meanwhile, Polly goes to a bar to meet Luca Changretta. She asks him to spare Arthur, Finn, and Michael in return for Tommy. Luca does not trust her at first, but she eventually convinces him that she resents Tommy for turning them in. Years earlier, while suffering from PTSD, Arthur accidentally beat a boy to death in a boxing match. The boy's mother, Mrs. Ross, visits Tommy and invites Arthur to her home. When Tommy asks why she wants Arthur there, she hesitantly says it would be an act of forgiveness and insists that Arthur accept her invitation. Before sending Arthur, Tommy positions the Peaky Blinders around the area, knowing it is a trap. Arthur goes to Mrs. Ross's apartment and she nervously welcomes him. She offers him tea while they wait for other guests. Tommy signals Johnny Dogs and Isaiah when a car appears. Mrs. Ross says she cannot forgive Arthur, and repentance will not erase his sins. Arthur knows forgiveness is not in his hands. She then sends her daughter to signal the driver. The car drives off and Tommy realizes it is a decoy and that Luca is heading for Michael. Finn rushes to warn Arthur. Furious, Arthur threatens Mrs. Ross, who pleads for her life. Michael can only pray as Luca presses a gun to his head. He pulls the trigger, but it is just a bluff. He then tells Michael that he agreed to Polly's offer. When Tommy arrives, Michael chooses not to tell him about Polly's arrangement with Luca. Later, Michael confronts Polly regarding the deal she made. He is appalled, but Polly insists it is the only reason he is still alive. Luca then calls Polly, warning that his visit to Michael was merely a display of power. He adds that the gun will not be empty next time if she fails to deliver Tommy as promised. Polly hurries into Tommy's office but pauses when Lizzie asks for a tea leaf reading. She agrees, asking Lizzie to check Tommy's schedule. Polly then tells her to keep Friday afternoon open and before leaving reveals that Lizzie is pregnant. Alfie shows up in Small Heath with a towering young man he calls Goliath. He honks to signal he is in a hurry, then follows Tommy to his newly built distillery. As they discuss business, Aberama arrives, and Tommy introduces Bonnie to Goliath as his opponent for an upcoming official boxing match. Tommy visits the hospital on Friday to get Michael to sign some papers. Michael nearly tells him about Polly's arrangement with Luca but holds back. As Tommy exits, Luca and his men trail him. He leads them to an apartment with a machine gun ready. He opens fire and takes one down before it jams. Luca realizes Polly has set him up. Tommy eliminates 2 more men before being surrounded. Luca challenges Tommy to a standoff, and Tommy accepts. Just as they prepare to draw their guns, Sergeant Moss and his squad appear, forcing Luca to retreat. At a family meeting, Polly reveals that she and Tommy came up with a plan to set up Luca, but it failed. That night, Lizzie reveals she is pregnant when Tommy offers her a drink. Knowing the child is his, Tommy promises her a new house and an allowance from the company. Since Michael is no longer safe, Polly sends him to hide with Aberama's men among the gypsies. Michael protests at first, but finally agrees. Luca later meets with Alfie Solomons, who is already aware of his feud with the Peaky Blinders. In return for his help, Alfie demands that his rum be sent to New York, extra payment for betraying Tommy, and several other ridiculous terms. Luca agrees to all of them without negotiation. Noticing this, Alfie mutters in Yiddish that Tommy had been right and that the mafia planned to eliminate them all and take over their businesses. At the office, Ada informs Tommy that a colonel named Ben Younger had her arrested in public and questioned about her links to the communists. Tommy reveals that she was arrested to intimidate other communists from acting rashly. He adds that the crown needed his help to prevent an impending revolution. In exchange, Tommy would secure a 5-year deal to supply military vehicles worth £2 million. Jesse accepts Tommy's dinner invitation, and he gives her his improved offer, including equal pay for both genders. During their conversation, he discovers that she favors the idea of war. He shares stories of his poor upbringing and his past dreams of changing the world, just like her. Jesse begins to warm to him and accepts his offer to dance. Tommy then asks her to arrange a meeting with the right people, promising that he will attend. Alfie Solomon speaks with Tommy before the fight and tells him that now that the mafia are involved, he feels it is time to step away from everything and that he has bought a house in Margate for his retirement. Tommy invites him to stay and watch the fight, but Alfie replies that he can already see the future, so it is pointless. As he leaves, Alfie tells Tommy they will meet again someday. When the fighting starts, Arthur grows suspicious of the men in Goliath's corner and warns Tommy. Tommy reassures him that everyone has been checked for weapons. When one man leaves the corner, Arthur follows him but is attacked. Tommy grows suspicious when he sees another man leave and decides to follow him as well. Polly notices the empty seats and goes to find Arthur and Tommy. Arthur fights for his life and manages to fire his pistol. Tommy hears the shot and rushes to him. He shoots the attacker before the man can pull the trigger, but Arthur is already lying lifeless on the floor. Polly hears Tommy's gunshot and sees him stepping out with a worried expression. She tells the others what has happened. Shortly after, Tommy enters the ring and fires a shot. He announces Arthur's death and orders everyone to stay inside the arena. Following Arthur's death, Polly informs Michael that their plans have changed. When Michael returns, Tommy tells him that he will be sent to America to manage the Shelby business there. He also reminds Michael that he had known about Polly's deal with Luca but chose to keep it to himself. Michael replies that he had simply sided with his mother, believing she had truly made a deal with Luca. At Arthur's funeral, Mrs. Changretta arrives under a flag of truce. Afterward, she speaks to Tommy and dismisses his peace offer. She demands that he turn over all his businesses to her son, or each member of the Shelby family will be hunted down one by one. With no options left, Tommy accepts. Luca later arrives at Tommy's distillery, forcing him to kneel and sign over his business. As he kneels, Tommy reveals he knows the Changrettas control New York's liquor trade and that Luca's death in Birmingham would allow other gangs to move in without starting a gang war. Polly adds that they have made a deal with Al Capone and that Luca's men are now being paid by him. A fistfight breaks out between Tommy and Luca before a figure emerges from the background. It is Arthur, and he shoots Luca without hesitation. Arthur had only been unconscious during the attack, and Tommy used it to deceive Luca. With the war over, the family gathers at Tommy's mansion to celebrate. Tommy apologizes for what happened during their last gathering there. He then travels to Margate to confront Alfie. Alfie avoids facing him and reveals that he has cancer, which shocks Tommy. Suddenly, Alfie fires, grazing Tommy's arm. Tommy fires back, hitting him in the face. When Tommy finally returns to the factory, he orders Mr. Devlin to deliver a letter to Jesse Eden and tells him it will be his final job. In the letter, Tommy says that they are now fighting for the same cause and asks Jesse to arrange a meeting with a higher-ranking member of her organization. When she meets him, she gives him the name and address of Casey Douglas, who has important contacts in London and Moscow. Having gained access to the Communist Party, Tommy meets Arthur and tells him that he has made contact with a Soviet agent in Birmingham. He claims that soon he will be able to identify anyone planning an armed revolution. Arthur knows that Tommy will want something in return for his services to the Crown. Tommy then hands him a portfolio of demands, leaving Arthur shocked. When the election arrives, Tommy runs for Member of Parliament for Birmingham and wins by a landslide. The story moves to 1929, when the New York Stock Exchange crashes. In the House of Commons, Tommy says those who gambled in the stock market should pay for their own mistakes, not the poor. His speech draws the attention of an ambitious politician, Oswald Mosley. He later introduces himself to Tommy. Michael ignores Tommy's warning to sell before the crash and loses a huge amount of the company's money. On his way back, Captain Swing captures him and tells Tommy that Michael was dealing with people who wanted him dead. Michael denies the claim. Tommy wants to know why the captain is helping him. She responds that powerful people consider him valuable to their political cause. Tommy then tells her to release Michael so he can deal with him himself. When Michael arrives, he presents Gina Gray as his new wife and explains that the ship's captain married them on board. Polly shows little interest in Gina and demands the truth. Michael claims armed men took him when the ship docked in Belfast and says he only wants to go home. Arthur confronts him as well, but Polly vouches for Michael and welcomes Gina into the family. Meanwhile, Mosley attempts to form a working partnership with Tommy. In one meeting, Tommy brings Ada as his political advisor. Mosley expresses his admiration for the Irish and asks Tommy to open a dialogue with important people from Ireland. He promises Tommy a promotion, but Tommy declines the offer. At the garrison, Tommy tells Arthur and Polly that his dreams about black cats may mean a traitor is near. When Michael and Gina arrive, Tommy demands an explanation. Michael says a friendly man from Belfast witnessed his marriage, and he wants Michael to meet the men from Glasgow who needed his help to sell their whiskey to America. Michael invites them on board, but later realizes they are Scottish men who know about Tommy and the money Michael lost in the crash. They warn Michael that Tommy might kill him and suggest betraying him. Before Michael can respond, Captain Swing appears and captures him and the men, whom she calls the Billy Boys. Tommy says he believes Michael, but warns that his unborn child will suffer if he is lying. Michael is furious at the threat. Tommy tells him he must repay the money he lost. Gina steps in and convinces Michael that Tommy needs his help. Meanwhile, the Billy Boys attack Aberama and brutally crucify his son. Their leader leaves a message to Aberama that Tommy must share now. Suspecting betrayal, Aberama attacks Johnny Dogs and brings him to Tommy, claiming he revealed his location. Johnny denies it and says he is no black cat. Tommy manages to calm Aberama and promises they will fight the Billy Boys together. Arthur invites retired footballer Billy Grade to the garrison as he searches for other means to make money. Arthur asks Finn to explain why they have invited Billy over and even threatens Billy's family if he refuses to cooperate. The Peaky Blinders reveal they plan to fix football matches, and Billy is forced to work as a bookmaker for them. When Tommy meets Mosley again, he brings Arthur and Michael as a display of strength and unity within his family. Mosley quickly exposes Michael's losses during the crash and reveals that Michael met Gina in a nightclub. He also tells Arthur that Linda is seeing another man. Arthur loses control after hearing this, but Tommy calms him down. When Tommy asks about the Billy Boys, Mosley says he has no connection to them, which is a lie. He also tells Tommy that he has made the investigation into a reporter killed by Tommy's men disappear as a gesture of goodwill. The move also shows he knows all their secrets. He then offers Tommy the role of deputy leader in his new political party. Arthur finds and attacks the man Linda is seeing. At the same time, Aberama and his men disguise themselves as road workers and ambush the Billy Boys. Aberama slashes the group leader's face and takes him down. He then tells the remaining men to inform their top boss that he has a bullet waiting for him. The next morning, the Billy Boys march to Aberama's doorstep. Tommy has already sent Arthur to bring Aberama back. Arthur tells Aberama that he revealed his hiding spot to the Billy Boys to force him to leave. When the Billy Boys arrive at Aberama's camp, they are greeted by a grenade trap. Tommy later meets the Billy Boys' leader Jimmy to arrange a temporary truce. He offers Jimmy a suite at the Midland Hotel to enjoy Birmingham and hands him £500 for his wife to buy a black horse and a black dress if Jimmy breaks the truce. Tommy regularly meets with his constituents at the garrison to hear their complaints. After one woman leaves, a Chinese man named Brilliant Chang enters. When the phone rings, he tells Tommy to answer it. Finn is on the line, saying a Chinese woman is holding a gun to him. Chang wants Tommy to take him seriously. After Finn confirms he is safe, Arthur hangs up. Chang then offers Tommy a business deal, showing him a packet of pure crystals and asking him to move them through the canals for $250,000. After the meeting, Tommy calls Polly for a vote. Polly and Arthur refuse at first, but when Tommy promises to reinstate Michael, Polly changes her mind. With the majority, Tommy tells Arthur to have Charlie prepare the boats. Tommy later informs Aberama about the truce with Jimmy and says his revenge will have to wait. He offers him marriage with Polly in return for cooperation, which offends Aberama. Tommy clarifies that the idea came from Polly and invites him to a party to make a proper proposal. Aberama accepts and puts the bullet with Jimmy's name back into his pocket. Tommy secretly steals some of Brilliant Chang's crystals and offers them to Jimmy for more profits. He asks for cash to avoid a paper trail. Jimmy insists on paying by check. Tommy says he will accept only if the check is guaranteed by their mutual friend Oswald Mosley. At the party, Polly meets Oswald and reveals they also have illegal substances, but he rejects the offer. Later, Oswald complains to Tommy about not being properly introduced. Tommy asks him to guarantee Jimmy's check, claiming it is for a gin distillery while hiding the drug deal. Oswald admits the signature could link him to Jimmy, but signs anyway to show he trusts Tommy. Meanwhile, Aberama proposes to Polly, and she accepts. Linda soon arrives, and Arthur leaves the dance to beg her to return home. She insists nothing happened with Frederick, and adds that his face is just as ugly as Arthur's soul now. She pulls a gun on him. A bang is heard, but it is Polly who shoots Linda instead. Linda lies on a table in pain while Arthur says he was willing to take the bullet. Tommy pulls the bullet out as Arthur blames himself. Tommy assures him she will be fine, and after giving her a drink, Linda eventually falls asleep. With Tommy occupied by family matters, Oswald takes the opportunity to speak to the guests at the party. His speech becomes a rally where he introduces his vision and reveals a new political party, the British Union of Fascists, under the slogan, Britain First. The audience responds enthusiastically. Tommy and the others arrive to hear his vision for the future of Britain. Later, Oswald gives Tommy several instructions. He warns him to keep family conflicts out of public view and asks him to replace his Jewish lawyer for the party's image. He also allows Jimmy to take Tommy's northern racetracks without compensation, claiming small disputes should not interfere with his vision. Oswald promises greater rewards if their plan succeeds and says their power could surpass even the king himself. That night, Lizzie questions Tommy's alliance with Oswald, saying Tommy may be bad, but Oswald is pure evil. Tommy explains he is working under Churchill's orders to infiltrate the fascist party, but Lizzie believes he truly wants to stop Oswald because he knows it is right. The next morning, Linda wakes up with Arthur watching over her. He suggests taking Billy and sailing away together, but Linda says it is too late and tells him to continue the path he has chosen before walking away. At the office, Tommy gives Colonel Ben the paper signed by Oswald that links him to Jimmy. As Ben gets into his car, it explodes, killing him and destroying the evidence. Tommy later tells Ada the news, and she realizes that everyone close to them eventually dies. Tommy tells Ada that Ben's death will be reported as an IRA assassination, but the truth is that he died because of Tommy's good intentions. The next day, Tommy goes to visit an old comrade named Barney in an asylum. Barney still recognizes him as Sergeant Major. Tommy offers him a pill with cyanide and opium that would cause a painless death, but Barney refuses, saying he still wants to live. Hearing this, Tommy promises to return for him on Wednesday night. When Wednesday comes, Barney's cell begins to shake violently after a loud bang. Meanwhile, Finn has formed a close friendship with Billy, the bookmaker. Arthur warns Finn not to discuss family business with his new friend. Billy says they only talk about football and women. Arthur then tells Finn that a family meeting will be held soon. During the meeting, Michael interrupts Tommy and takes control of the conversation. He tells everyone about the profits he has made since being placed in charge of Brilliant Chang's crystal shipment. He then proposes a new business model where he would run the company while Tommy retires and leaves the business to the next generation. Michael presents his proposal to Tommy, who immediately throws it into the fireplace. Soon after, Tommy is informed that Barney has lost his mind again, so the Peaky Blinders leave the meeting to deal with the situation. Before joining them, Tommy banishes Michael, and Polly slaps him for his insolence. When Tommy arrives, Barney drops everything and stands at attention. Tommy reminds him that they are no longer at war, and Barney slowly calms down. The meeting resumes, and Tommy reveals his plan to assassinate Oswald during the upcoming rally. He names Barney, one of the best snipers in the war, as their shooter. Tommy explains that the police would not execute Barney because of his insanity and would simply return him to the asylum. He orders Johnny Dogs and Arthur to place Barney in position. Tommy also tells Aberama that he will finally be able to get revenge on Jimmy. Tommy later heads to Margate to see Alfie Solomons. Alfie is curious about how Tommy discovered he had survived. Tommy explains that Alfie had sent him a letter asking about his dog. Their conversation becomes serious as Tommy reveals his plan to assassinate Oswald Mosley and asks for Alfie's help in staging a riot as a distraction. They dispute the payment, but eventually settle on a deal. Alfie asks about Tommy's ultimate goal, and Tommy replies that he will continue until he meets someone he cannot defeat. The day finally comes when Oswald and Tommy will announce their new political party. As planned, Alfie sends his men to take part in the protest. Finn prepares to leave, and Billy asks him where he is going. Finn tells him they are going to shoot a fascist soon and asks him to keep it secret. However, Billy makes a phone call right after Finn leaves. Meanwhile, Arthur positions Barney and makes sure he knows when to take the shot. Aberama quietly sneaks backstage and hides in the shadows, waiting for the right moment to execute Jimmy. Soon, the announcer welcomes Oswald Mosley. The crowd erupts with cheers and loud applause. Oswald begins speaking as the audience listens closely. After some time, the Jewish protesters push their way into the hall. Jimmy sends his men to deal with them, leaving himself vulnerable. Tommy checks his pocket watch and begins counting. When he reaches 10, Oswald is still alive. Barney has already been killed, and Aberama is attacked from behind. Tommy notices Arthur fighting someone and sees Aberama lying dead on the floor. He realizes the plan has been exposed. Tommy is livid. He knows someone has betrayed them, but he does not know who. Back at the mansion, Tommy tells Arthur that he has finally found a man he cannot defeat, and then walks out to the field. There, he sees Grace asking him to join her. Tommy pulls out his pistol and pulls the trigger, but the pistol is empty. As Tommy lies on the muddy ground, Lizzie arrives and tells him that Arthur took the bullets from his gun on their way back. She criticizes Tommy for trying to escape his problems in such a cowardly manner. Tommy regains his composure and goes back to the mansion, where he hears the phone ringing. Captain Swing from the IRA informs Tommy that they were behind his failed assassination attempt. She tells Tommy that they need to keep Mosley alive. She also says they have sent his dead comrades to the mansion. Tommy checks them and sees that it is Barney, Aberama, and the last person is Polly Gray. Tommy breaks down when he sees his aunt lying there. Later, Michael sets fire to Polly's wagon while the family says their final goodbye. Michael makes a promise to his mother that he will have his revenge on Tommy. Flash forward to 1933. Tommy arrives on the island of Miquelon to negotiate a $5 million drug deal with Michael and his new associates. Michael now works for Gina's uncle, Jack Nelson, also known as Uncle Jack. His associates mock Tommy, demanding he entertain them with a poem, which Tommy calmly obliges. Before he leaves, he tells them that there is an informant hidden within their ranks. Michael recognizes that Tommy isn't simply helping them, he's demonstrating the depth of his connection right before their eyes. Tommy then hands over a briefcase containing pure opium for Uncle Jack to inspect personally. However, Tommy secretly tips off the police about the briefcase, leading to Michael's arrest for smuggling opium. Gina visits Michael in prison. She doesn't think they should do business with Tommy, but Michael says he still has unfinished business with him. Michael also thinks the informant Tommy mentioned is the one who had him arrested. Later, Tommy visits Gina, but she shuts him down, saying her uncle refuses to work with him. Tommy then reveals that he was the one who had Michael arrested to put her uncle in a dilemma. Jack cannot simply free Michael because it would attract media attention and damage his reputation with his friends in high places. However, if he leaves Michael in prison, he risks losing the loyalty of his men in Boston. Before leaving, Tommy tells Gina that if Jack refuses to buy his opium, he will sell it to a rival who is also Alfie Solomon's uncle. If this happens, the Solomons will become more powerful in Boston, which could cause major problems for Uncle Jack. Later, Tommy gets a call from Lizzie telling him that their daughter has suddenly developed a high fever. She also mentions that Ruby is hallucinating about a mysterious man with green eyes and uttering strange gypsy words. Worried, Tommy tells Lizzie to place a black Madonna around Ruby's neck and to inform Johnny Dogs and his wife about the words Ruby is uttering. He explains that it is a gypsy matter and that he will be returning home soon. When Tommy finally arrives home, Ruby has already recovered. Tommy notices the Black Madonna and hugs her. Later, Tommy meets Captain Swing. Even though she was responsible for Polly's death, Tommy says that business is more important than revenge and that they still need her alive. The meeting continues at the garrison. Tommy then shows her some private letters from Uncle Jack that he managed to obtain. From these letters, Tommy learns that Jack is visiting London to see how strong the fascist movement is. Tommy plans to work with Swing to help Jack find fascist supporters. In return, he hopes Jack will agree to his business deal. After the meeting, Tommy goes to see Alfie. He informs Alfie that his uncle has been killed by Jack's men in Boston. Tommy knows Alfie has weakened, otherwise he would have retaliated already. Tommy then offers to help Alfie take revenge and regain power by taking control of his uncle's illegal business in Boston. In return, Tommy asks half of Alfie's property in Camden Town so he can build a shelter for people in need. Meanwhile, Gina visits Michael one last time before she flies to London with Jack. She tells Michael that Jack has approved his request to kill Tommy once he gets out of prison. Tommy and Lizzie attend Mosley's fascist rally. A reporter asks Tommy why a socialist like him would attend such an event. Tommy responds that he wants to act as a bridge between the two ideologies. Soon after, Arthur arrives drunk. Since Linda left him, he has not been the same. Needing his brother back to normal, Tommy tells Arthur that he has written a letter to Linda on his behalf. According to Tommy, she has replied and she is willing to forgive him. Tommy tells Arthur to stay sober for at least 2 weeks to clear his head before Linda arrives. Later, Tommy reports to Oswald about Jack Nelson's real reason for being in London. He offers to arrange a meeting between the two men. Soon after, Tommy meets Uncle Jack face to face. The two men exchange stories about their pasts as they cautiously size each other up. Jack claims that he has come to London to buy alcohol licenses, but Tommy reveals that he already knows the truth. He says that he can introduce Jack to powerful figures within the fascist party. In return, Tommy wants access to ship his products into South Boston. Days later, Lizzie notices several strange drawings made by Ruby and finds her staring into the chimney. Ruby claims that she can hear the voice of the mysterious man coming from the chimney. Worried, Lizzie calls Tommy, but he is at the House of Commons. After the session ends, Tommy receives a message about Ruby. He rushes to call Lizzie, but suddenly has a seizure. After recovering, Tommy immediately calls Lizzie. She tells him that Ruby's fever has returned. When Tommy arrives home, Lizzie stops him from going near Ruby. The doctor believes she may have tuberculosis and warns them not to come into contact with her. Tommy contacted an associate to locate Esme, believing she might have cursed Ruby. He then rushes Ruby to the hospital and blames himself for her illness, but Lizzie calms him down. Later, both of them also take x-rays to make sure they have not caught the disease. Tommy follows the trail Esme left to find her. He arrives at a gypsy camp and demands to see her. When Esme appears, Tommy reveals Ruby's illness, and her reaction makes it clear she didn't curse his daughter. Tommy rushes back to his car to search for other answers, but Esme stops him. She tells him that she can help and leads him to a graveyard. There, Tommy discovers the name of a deceased girl. Connie was the niece of the gypsy woman Tommy gave the cursed sapphire to after Grace was shot. Esme reveals that the gypsy woman later gave the sapphire to her sister, who then placed it on her daughter. The girl fell sick and eventually died. Esme suggests that the girl's mother may have cursed Ruby out of revenge. Tommy struggles to believe it. He tells Esme that he will find the girl's mother and persuade her to take the curse back, promising even to build the grandest monument on her daughter's grave. Esme agrees to help him find the girl's mother, but only if he pays her in gold. Tommy accepts her offer. When Tommy comes back to the hospital, Lizzie is in tears and yelling at him. Ruby was already gone, and he wasn't there to bid his daughter farewell. He stands frozen, overwhelmed by grief and guilt for failing his daughter. Following Ruby's funeral, Tommy goes to a gypsy camp and begins firing at once. Shots tear through the camp, causing several to fall as the rest run in fear. Consumed by grief and anger, he slams his rifle against a tree before collapsing and crying out in pain. Later, he meets Esme to pay her, but she tells him they still have unfinished business. She reminds Tommy of a woman he slept with before the war. The woman has since died, but she left behind Tommy's kid, whom Esme has found. Knowing Ruby's death has left a void in Tommy's heart, she suggests the kid could fill it, but only if he pays again. A few days later, Jack, Captain Swing, Mosley, and Diana arrive at Tommy's mansion for a meeting. They talk about politics and their plans to change the world. Jack doubts Tommy's loyalty, so Mosley asks him to perform the Perish Judah salute, and after a brief moment, Tommy complies. Seeing this, Jack finally agrees to Tommy's offer to import opium into Boston. Even though the deal is successful, Tommy feels sick about working with them. After the meeting ends, he goes into the woods and fires several shots from his gun to release his anger. The next day, Tommy receives an anonymous tip that Gina is involved in an affair with Mosley. He goes to confirm it and spots him leaving her apartment. Tommy then confronts Gina. Gina knows she has been caught and asks Tommy what he wants. Tommy tells her that when she travels to Berlin with Mosley, he expects to know every detail about his meeting with the German officials. He warns her that he will know if she lies and there will be serious consequences. Tommy returns home and checks a letter from the hospital. According to the X-ray report, he has been diagnosed with the same disease that took Ruby's life. Tommy's personal doctor tells him that he does not have tuberculosis. However, he does have tuberculoma, an illness caused by the same bacteria as tuberculosis. Dr. Holford says that Tommy may already be experiencing symptoms such as seizures and hallucinations. Eventually, Tommy will require help from his loved ones to care for him, and he will eventually die from the illness. Just then, Lizzie walks into the room. Tommy calmly asks the doctor how long he has left. The doctor says about 1 year to 18 months. Seeing Tommy's serious face, Lizzie asks what they are talking about. Tommy tells her it is nothing serious, just an unexpected bill he has to pay. After receiving the news, his first act is to threaten a Chinese tea shop if they keep giving Arthur opium. Tommy gives them an ultimatum. From now on, the shop will only sell tea and cakes, or the entire place will be blown apart. Terrified, the owner agrees. The wife believes the bomb is nothing more than a bluff, but as Tommy throws the briefcase into the river, a massive explosion erupts, leaving them terrified. Tommy then instructs a police officer to warn every pub and cafe owner on the street that the opium trade is finished. If anyone continues selling it, Tommy will shut down every business and turn the entire street into apartments. Later, Tommy introduces his son Duke to everyone. He then meets Linda in the church and says he is willing to donate £10,000 to her foundation if she agrees to look after Arthur. Knowing how much the money could help her cause, Linda eventually agrees. A priest visits Michael in prison on behalf of Jack Nelson and tells Michael that he can finally be released, but only if he answers one question. The priest adds, the answer must be yes if Michael wants his freedom. Michael understands what the priest is implying. Without hesitation, he tells the priest that he will kill Tommy once he gets out of prison. Meanwhile, Uncle Charlie takes Duke to the armory and explains what it means to be a Peaky Blinder, emphasizing how the family always stands together in times of trouble. He asks Duke whether he has ever used a weapon, and Duke replies that he has fired a pistol and a shotgun while hunting. Charlie then asks if Duke has ever killed someone. Duke says yes, explaining that a hospital worker once refused to give his mother a bed because she was a gypsy. His mother never lived to see the next sunrise, and neither did the man who turned them away. Finally, Charlie asks Duke if he can keep a secret. As Tommy walks into his office, he finds Arthur staring at his diagnosis. Arthur asks how long Tommy has left. Tommy replies that he has enough time to do what he needs to do. Arthur cannot bear the thought of losing another brother. He tells Tommy that he is finally clean and sober because of him and hugs him as tightly as he can. Before leaving for Canada, Tommy calls for one final meeting. He even invites Billy the bookmaker so he can officially welcome him into the Peaky Blinders. Charlie and Duke join them after Duke completes his initiation. Tommy opens the meeting by speaking in the gypsy language, delivering a warning to those present. Finn never bothered to learn the language, so he can only understand fragments of what is being said. Tommy then gives them his instructions. All the valuables, along with a few dead bodies, must be removed from his mansion because it will soon be demolished. The land will be donated to build housing for the working class. The real reason is more personal. Tommy wants to erase the painful memories tied to the house, especially the deaths of Grace and Ruby. To Finn's shock, Tommy places Isaiah in charge of the operation instead of him. Arthur announces that he will not be joining them, as he plans to spend the evening celebrating his wedding anniversary with Linda at the Garrison pub. Isaiah and the others are waiting for Finn and Billy to arrive. Billy immediately asks about the booze, and Duke tells him that it is in the kitchen. As they move through the house, Duke suddenly unleashes a burst of gunfire, startling Billy and Finn. When Finn questions his actions, Duke calmly explains that the house already has a death sentence. Finn then suggests digging for the buried bodies, but Duke replies that they cannot start digging until the bodies are buried first. Confused, Finn demands an explanation. That is when Duke reveals the truth. Billy is a mole. Billy is quickly restrained, and Duke hands Finn a pistol, ordering him to execute his friend. He adds that the command comes from Arthur himself. Refusing would mean Finn is no longer part of the Shelby family. Finn takes the gun but pulls the trigger on Duke instead. Michael and his men arrive on Miquelon Island, and one of his associates begins activating a timed explosive hidden inside a bag. Michael then places the bag behind one of the cars. One of the men suggests that Michael should simply shoot Tommy. Michael replies that Polly once said Tommy would not die from a bullet, so they have to improvise. Duke grabs the pistol as he attacks Finn. He explains that Uncle Charlie suggested removing the first 2 bullets. Billy suddenly jumps to attack Duke, but Duke shoots him immediately. He then tells Finn that, by order of the Peaky Blinders, he is no longer part of the Shelby family. Furious, Finn promises that he will return for Duke and storms off. Captain Swing and her men approach the garrison after Billy informs them that Arthur will be there. As they enter the pub, the phone suddenly rings. One of Swing's men ends the call, while another checks the parlor, only to find Uncle Charlie instead. At that moment, Arthur quickly takes Captain Swing hostage. He tells her that she will die in the street, so her blood does not spoil the bar. But as they step outside, one of Swing's men fires his rifle and hits Arthur in the arm. Chaos erupts as everyone rushes for cover. Arthur signals one of his men to begin the attack. A burst of machine gun fire takes out Swing's rifleman, followed by Jeremiah throwing mustard gas canisters to suffocate Swing and the rest of her men. One of Swing's associates starts shooting wildly in panic, but Jeremiah steps out of the green smoke and finishes him off. With all her men gone, Arthur finally confronts Swing. He lends her his mask so he can remind her of his Aunt Polly. In a final desperate attempt, Captain Swing begins quoting a Bible verse, but Arthur shoots her before she can finish. Meanwhile, Tommy arrives at the bar and Michael asks Tommy to take them to his opium storage facility. As they head out, Michael's associates get into the car behind them, and he pretends to have forgotten his cigarettes. He waits inside the bar until an explosion erupts. Certain he has avenged his mother, Michael steps outside, only to be confronted by Tommy at gunpoint. Johnny Dog steps out from hiding and reveals that Tommy had instructed him to switch the bag. Tommy gives Michael a chance to stop, but Michael remains adamant and blames him for Polly's death. Tommy says Polly made her own choice. He adds that she used to visit his dreams, but not anymore. With that, Tommy pulls the trigger. Tommy visits his mansion one last time before giving Curly the order to blow it up. Later, he holds a feast for the family in the woods to say his farewell. He tells Ada that she should run for politics once a seat opens up for her. Tommy then tells his son, Charlie, to take care of Lizzie before walking over to Duke and whispering something in his ear. Linda says that Arthur went fishing because farewells are not his thing. As Tommy leaves, Ada senses that he is hiding something, but Tommy refuses to tell her. 1 month later, Tommy is living alone in the hills. He tosses the coin once more, leaving his fate to chance. This time, it seals his end. Just as he prepares to pull the trigger, he hears footsteps approaching. It is Ruby, and she tells him he is not sick. She asks him to start a fire, promising he will find the answer. Tommy listens, and as he picks up a newspaper to light it, he notices an article about Oswald and Diana's wedding in Berlin. In the photograph, Tommy spots his doctor and realizes he has been deceived into believing he has an incurable illness, pushing him to forfeit his own life. Tommy confronts Dr. Holford and forces him to kneel while pointing a gun at him. Holford tells Tommy that he never had tuberculoma, but he is still sick. That sickness is guilt. Tommy is about to shoot him, but the sound of a bell stops him. The bell reminds Tommy of the armistice and peace. Tommy fires his gun in another direction and leaves. He returns to his wagon, only to find that someone has already set it on fire. Knowing he has to move on, Tommy takes his horse and rides away.